Hello, Ed 140 students. In the first week of the course, we've begun to learn something about the complexity of literacy. We've noticed the way that literacy varies across time, historically. We've noticed cultural differences in how literacy is expressed. We've become alert to the ways in which literacy changes in the course of a person's lifetime, developmentally. We've noticed the multiple modalities that are associated with literacy, now more than ever. Literacy lives on the screen as well as in books. And we've noticed the ways in which literacy is implicated with relations of power. Sometimes literacy is withheld as a way of oppressing people, and sometimes literacy and powerful literacy practices are bestowed. And through literacy, people gain more agency and control over their lives. I think Sylvia Scribner perhaps said it best when she reminded us that literacy has neither a static nor a universal essence. So given that, given the way that literacy is changing, has always changed, but especially given the rapid changes around literacy now, and also the importance, the extreme importance of making meaning in a global world, it'll behoove us to learn how to study literacy, to learn more about it, to learn how people best acquire it, to learn how children can excel as readers and writers, composers and designers. So we're going to turn for a moment in the course to think about research on literacy. There are many ways, of course, to carry out studies of how people become literate and how to study even the essence of what literacy consists of in a particular time and place. However, in this course, we're going to introduce you to a particular approach to studying literacy that we think is especially powerful. And it's important to note that you will be engaging in original research related to literacy. You won't just be reading the research and theorizing of others. You'll be engaging in that research and theorizing yourself. So, to begin, think for a moment of what image comes to your mind when I say the word research or researcher. Perhaps the most common notion of research is in a laboratory, and that research perhaps consists of designing and carrying out experiments in a controlled setting. Well, we're going to take a quite different approach to conducting research on literacy. We won't be working in a laboratory, but we'll be working in real-world settings such as schools and educational organizations. And we'll be studying literacy in the social world. Well, if you want to collect data on the social world, there are two main ways of doing so, a quantified way and a qualified way. So you can go out and count things. You can carry out quantitative research on, for example, how many hours of TV kids watch, or the amount of time they spend on their mobile devices. Or you can carry out qualitative research and understand more about the hows and the whys of the watching and the doing, the reading and the writing. And that's the kind of work, the kind of research that we'll be doing. You'll be taking a qualitative approach in which you conduct research not with numbers, but with words. You'll be immersing yourself in an educational setting, interacting with kids as they engage in literacy activities and activities in general, and paying quite close attention to what they're doing, what they say, how they interact, how they use paper and pencil and technologies and all kinds of modalities to make meaning. And that is a qualitative approach rather than simply a counting approach. Now, the powerful thing about immersing yourself in a setting and using your senses, your eyes and ears and your physical sense of a place and how people are making meaning in that place. Well, the power of that is that you have a chance in that kind of setting, given the quality of your observational tools, you have a chance of trying to see the world from another person's point of view. So one important aspect of qualitative research is looking at phenomenon from others' viewpoints and trying to understand how they see things, how they do things, and why they do them, instead of imposing just your own categories on their experiences. So when you go to your field sites, you'll be interacting with kids or learners perhaps of different ages, and you'll be paying very close attention to what they say and do. And then once you leave that field site and go back to your home or your dorm room or a cafe, if that's where you prefer to write, you'll record everything that you can remember about that field site and the interactions that you had with kids and teachers and learners. And you'll record what you remember in as much detail as possible. And those observations that you make will form your data. After you write them down, your observations become data, and later on in the course, we'll teach you how to systematically analyze your field notes in order to come to new understandings, things that you didn't realize in the moment of interacting with kids or observing them. It's important in this kind of research to not only observe, though, but to participate while you're observing, or to do those two things at once. And in fact, this kind of research is called participant observation. So you won't just be standing off to the side trying to remember what kids are doing. You'll actually be working with them, helping to tutor and mentor them, and simultaneously, in your mind's eye, you'll be attempting to take note of what you're doing. You won't be participating unreflectively. You'll always be conscious of it because you'll want to remember it, and you'll want to remember what happens in as much detail as possible. We'll provide information on exactly how to write your field notes and the parts of your field notes, but for now, I want you to think about this double action of participating and observing, so that you're engaging with people at the field site, you're working with kids closely, you're interacting with them and having fun and helping them learn, but you're also trying to remember, taking note of things, remembering bits of conversation, recalling what kids do and how they look and what the room looks like that you're working in and how the furniture is arranged and how many computers there are and what time things happen. All of these details will make up your empirical record or your field note that you'll later be able to analyze in order to carry out your research. So I want to leave you today with a couple of recommendations about how to engage in this particular kind of research in which you're making direct contact with people in the course of their daily lives in order to understand the how and the why of what they're doing. And in our case, the how, the what, and the how and the why of literacy. So to do excellent work, first of all, you'll need to do excellent research, you'll first of all need to record detailed observations, just like I just described, and we'll give you more information about how to do that in the course. But the first part, a central component to doing excellent qualitative research, is to create detailed records, detailed field notes of what you remember from your interactions and observations on site. But the second part of doing great research of this kind is to bring to bear the big ideas, concepts, and theories that you're learning in the course, in your readings, and that you come up with yourself. So in this course, you've already become introduced to some organizing ideas or important concepts about literacy. Scribner offered us the notion of metaphors of literacy to capture the ways in which people have different values about literacy and different appreciations of what it's for. So she helped us think metaphorically about the purposes of literacy. She reminded us that we can think of literacy as adaptation or as power or as a state of grace. Well, those metaphors might stick in your mind as you go to your field sites, and you might consider, for example, what the dominant metaphors of literacy are at a particular field site or educational setting. Which ones come to the fore? Perhaps you'll notice too that there are some purposes of literacy that aren't captured in Scribner's 3 metaphors. Perhaps you'll want to think of another metaphor that you can introduce that will help you understand something important about your fieldwork. To take another big idea that we've come across in the course, we can think about Jim G's notion of discourses. These identity kits are ways of thinking, feeling, acting, and believing that also include particular kinds of literacies. So when you go to your field sites, you might have this notion of discourse in the back of your minds. And you might think, for example, what are the discourses here in this educational program? What discourses seem to come from kids' communities? What discourses are being offered here? That might be a kind of organizing concept that will help you notice some things at your site that you wouldn't ordinarily. So to return to this idea of these 2 qualities of great fieldwork, you'll want to put the big ideas from the course, the concepts that you come across in readings and that we discuss in Hangouts, you'll want to put those in conversation with the observations that you make on at your field site, because it's the mixture of these 2. It's the bouncing off of the big ideas with the observations that really is the magic of doing qualitative fieldwork. So I want to read you a segment from a book that I greatly admire by a researcher, a sociologist, and anthropologist whose name is Paul Willis, who is from Great Britain. He wrote many books, but one of my favorites is the Ethnographic Imagination. And in this book, he talks about doing field work. And in one paragraph, he highlights how it's so important to put empirical data in connection with big ideas or theories or concepts. And here's what he says. The problem with many empirical data or observations, empirically presented, is that they can be flat and uninteresting, a documentary of detail which does not connect with urgent issues. On the other hand, the big ideas are empty of people, feeling, and experience. In my view, well-grounded and illuminating analytic points flow only from bringing concepts into a relationship with the messiness of ordinary life. I love this idea of bringing the ideas from the academy into contact with the messiness of ordinary life, the details of taking part in an educational program for kids in the summer. So you'll want to animate your observations with the concepts you get from the class, but at the same time you'll want to test those concepts against the everyday experiences that you observe in the field. Perhaps the concepts will match those experiences, but perhaps the experiences will contradict some of the concepts, and you'll go back to those concepts and invent new ones. All right, so that's it for my discussion with you at this point of how to do field work, how to study literacy. Really hope you enjoy your explorations of literacy, not only in the readings that you do in the class and not only in the in the discussions that we engage in around the artifacts that you upload and that you create. I hope you'll also enjoy the field work that you do, and that you'll see this as an opportunity to engage in an important activity of knowledge generation.